Hey, thanks for joining me. So, in another of the pile of books that got sent to me by some fans of the channel, just a random copy of a book called New Force, number three. So, I mean, I by the name, I wouldn't know what New Force is, but looking at the characters, I'm like, oh, this must be some kind of spin-off future iteration of the New Men from Liefeld Studio. Characters I know almost nothing about. I was gonna say it's very little, but when I try to think about what I know about them, I know nothing except they exist and they have powers that were created or given to them from some alien space god creatures, and they are using their abilities to try and stop them. I think the alien creatures are called the Keep, I believe, something to that effect. I never read these books. Um, Artistically, they never looked interesting. Story-wise, there's almost nothing from Extreme Studios looked interesting to me at the time as a kid. And, there was factors that had to be kind of thought about for myself. Like, I was on a limited budget, and I could only buy so many comics at a time. And when you have all the stuff that was coming out in the 90s, and I was obviously a big Image guy. I was collecting Spawn, I was collecting Savage Dragon, I was collecting Wildcats and Stormwatch, and I was collecting the Top Cow books, Cyber Force, and then Witchblade and Darkness, and I would collect the stuff that Liefeld would draw, but almost nothing else from anybody else. There was just not enough money in the world for me that I had access to let me pick up everything. But even if I had money for it, I don't know that I would have wanted to. Though, throughout the course of the channel, I've gotten several comments when I've kind of covered some books with these characters, which is not many, but some. And I've heard people say that the book, from what I remember in the comments, was surprisingly consistent and reasonably entertaining. And so that's something to be said. I've mentioned before that a lot of these studios, the Image guys, they had like a secondary book. You had Wildcats at Wildstorm, but the secondary book, like Stormwatch, and like Youngblood had Team Youngblood, things like that. Sometimes the secondary books, that is not the flagship title by the premier artist, sometimes the secondary books, seems like they get a reputation for just kind of going along and being published relatively regularly, and just given the opportunity for the writers and artists to just kind of craft a story. Whether it was not ever really good or not, who's to say? But all that to say, I just feel like I've kind of been led to believe that the New Men, and I don't know how the New Force connects into it. I don't know. But, it's interesting to kind of hear that some people, well, I mean, obviously there's people that look back on these books with fondness because it's all part of our childhood and all that fun. But I know nothing about these guys. Not a thing. So, but it's just, I'm going to look at it because it's a book that somebody sent to me, and it's content for the channel. It's Image Comics, that 90s era. And some people out there enjoy this stuff. So I just thought that we kind of flip through it. Again, not super caring too much about the story, and kind of like the book I did just recently, the issue of Crypt number 2. Not interested in that story, but I was kind of interested, like, well, let's just see how the artist does. Let's see what they do. And Mark Pajarillo, I believe I was corrected on how to pronounce his name, did pretty good. I have to say, this book is considerably better. I gave it kind of a basic read, like a very kind of a quick flip through, to kind of got the basic concept. I don't know that Eric Stevenson's ever going to be known as a good writer. I can't really speak on that, but it feels like there's kind of a reasonably interesting kind of through line with the story. And pencils by TODD NAUCK. The book looks pretty dang solid. This is March of '96 when it was published. TODD NAUCK is one of a few artists who my brain is just locked into the first kind of, my first impression when I was introduced to their art. And it's what sticks out most prominently in my mind when I think of their name. And it's not good. when I think of Todd Knock, the first time I ever saw his art, some early 90s book. I want to, I mean, I think it was an Extreme Studios book, and I think it was like a Power Rangers and Bad Rock crossover. And I remember looking at it as a kid and just thinking it was the ugliest, crappiest art I've ever seen. Now, Todd Knock has become a crazy freaking good artist. Like really good. And as far as I know, he's still drawing to this day, unless something's changed that I'm unaware of. And he's been really, really good for a long time. In fact, you know, like I said, this is 96. So when I would have seen him at first, maybe would have been 92, 93, I'm guessing. So in just a couple of years, he's advanced extremely quickly. So it's on me, and I fully admit that the unfortunate reality is that when I see his name, I automatically associate it at first. Like my brain just immediately jumps to, oh yeah, it's that guy whose art sucked so bad. It just burned into my brain. That's not good. And to be fair, I have the same reaction to Dan Panosian, his name. I just remember seeing his art on like Prophet and a bunch of those books back in the 90s. And that name just stuck out as like, this guy sucks. I do not like his work. And then he is, of course, if you know Dan Panosian, his work is unbelievably like master level these days. And he's been that way for a long time. I'm just going off on this stupid artist tangent. It's just there's a couple of names. It's Todd Knock, Dan Panosian. There's a few others where I just remember seeing their name, and that's the first time I saw him back in the early 90s, and I immediately thought this art sucks, and that my brain has clung to that. But they're both really good. And the skill level going on in this book is actually pretty dang good. Todd Knock progressed really fast. The guy's got legitimate talent. So being that it's issue 3 on what I'm assuming is like a secondary title after the Extreme Destroyer or whatever storyline was going on, I'm not going to be too concerned about trying to understand the story. It is interesting. I was just noticing down here in the credits. This is interesting. So obviously the characters, you know, you'd be like, okay, they're Liefeld characters, right? But down here, there's characters Bootleg and Dusk are copyright to Todd Knock himself. Character Exit is copyrighted to Eric Stevenson and Jeff Matsuda. And the character Narcissi is copyrighted to Eric Stevenson and Todd Knock. So that's interesting that they're saying these individual characters are owned by this specific creator, which is how it should be. To Liefeld's credit, you know, he's making sure to put in the, you know, the credits, the copyright, who owns what. They're listing who owns what. So that's awesome. I like that. But I actually didn't know that. I just kind of thought these were all Liefeld creations, but apparently they're not. So the team has been doing God knows what, and they're caught. I don't know most of these characters. Pilot, I don't think he's listed here. Dash, I don't know which character Dash is. Kodiak is the Bear Rain, I think is this guy here. Exit, I don't know if that character's even here. Sundance, I don't think she's listed here. But yeah, the team is caught. And so they were captured, and I guess they're supposed to be in this helicopter being transported to this giant whatever the hell facility. It's kind of a simple drawing. I don't know what would be a better angle to choose for it. It conveys a lot of size if you look down at the lower parts of the building and see the little tiny windows. So it feels like a really big building. I guess I'm sitting here trying to think of what would be the most perfect way to illustrate this that a quote-unquote better artist would do. But that aside, forget that. I mean, you know, quit trying to critique it and compare it to what could be better done by a better artist. I have to say that the rain effect is distracting because it kind of hides the art in a way, but in that distraction, it works really well as an atmospheric disturbance. I mean, if you look out when it's really raining, watch a movie or something like that, if it's really coming down, like the rain distorts your field of vision. And I was kind of surprised at, because I'm thinking this rain is just all done by the colorist. They even did a kind of a computer effect in the rotors of the helicopter up here, where it's intentionally blurred and some water is splashing around the edges where the rotors are going. That's pretty awesome that they would think to do that. So at first I was like, oh, this rain is kind of making it not hard, but it's just, it distracts from getting to look at the art itself. But in that distraction, it makes it really feel like the atmospherics of the weather are affecting what we'd see, and it makes it a little bit more believable. So it's actually a win. It's really strange. It's something that I've never seen before, that really made me stop and feel like I really get that. It's interesting. I don't know that I would do it all the time, given the opportunity, but it works. But yeah, they land the helicopter. And again, just thinking about this early artist that is TODD NAUCK drawing a great helicopter, and then like, this might seem like a really basic panel, but the basic 1-point perspective being used here, but the characters are in kind of proper perspective with each other. The ground and horizon are all lined up very well. The guy who owns the studio could not draw that panel if his life depended on it. With that background and that perspective, the shot of the helicopter, he could not. The big megastar of the studio cannot do the basic stuff that his little new artists are able to do 1,000 times better than him. TODD NAUCK, man, the guy had legitimate skills. Good face, TODD NAUCK has a cartoony-ish kind of vibe that works. But yeah, the team is captured, and who knows what's going to happen to him. So now we cut back to some of the other characters. They got this girl here. And I was looking at, I'm trying to find it. I think I've got it sitting out right here. I'd recently got this Youngblood #3, like this, because this book is from 1993. This Youngblood is from like last week. And I was, there was this female character that's burning and on fire back here. And they identify her as Sundance. And I'm like, who the fuck is Sundance? Is that some new character? I don't know. I just assumed it was. But it wasn't until I got this, I'm like, I think this is her. So that flaming chick who's in the book has been around forever. I mean, right? That's who she's supposed to be. I mean, correct me, right? I don't know that they mentioned her name anywhere. I didn't really read this in detail. Like I said, I did kind of a cursory, flip through it. But anyway, it's just interesting. I'm like, oh, I guess this girl did exist. In the books forever ago, and now she's just in a couple of background panels in the new Youngblood book, as if to say, hey, she's still alive, guys. Speaking of impressive things that this artist can do, that not to put too fine a point on it, but once again, the owner of the studio could not even begin to dream of doing himself. Look at this shot. An overhead shot looking down, all in this angular perspective, all kind of coming together at one point, in these medical beds or whatever the hell they are, all the tech detail. This is crazy. This is for, an artist at this level, to put in this kind of work. This is a guy who really loves what he's doing and is really showing what he can do. That's pretty dang awesome. I mean, for real. It's, the tech background looks great. It really tells you exactly what you need, and it's visually impressive. So TODD NAUCK, dude, good job. But they're captured, and I guess what the bad guy's doing is he's gonna get into their head. The title of the story, what is it? Mind Games is the title of the story. He's plugging them in, and I guess he puts them into a virtual reality world. Something like that. The beauty of the program even now is poking and prodding the very fabric of their minds. So I guess they're just they're captured, and he puts them into a virtual reality world to do what? Manipulate them, train them, take them over, fuck with them. I don't know. All I know is we get a splash page opening up, and the team is just awake, and there they are. They're holy shit, where are we? We're not in Kansas anymore. I mean, he literally says that. So yeah, being the I guess the new main characters or new force, whatever the case may be. Like I said, I never read their books, and in this young blood, giant-sized young blood, which I've reviewed on the channel, you get into the book, and eventually you get introduced like, oh shit, Kodiak is here on this island. And as you get going into the book, I knew the bear, I knew the Kodiak guy. But and then this other character showed up, and he's got a little jewel on his head, and he stands there flexing, looking tough. And then eventually we get the double page shot, and I'm like, I don't know who any of these fucking characters are beyond the bear with the Infinity Gauntlet on. I'm like, Angel from X-Men is here, generic girl, and then guy with the Infinity Stone on his forehead. I'm guessing, so obviously the bear, I'm guessing this guy here is this dude here, Rain, I think it is. And I don't know that either one of these girls is that girl. And Flying Dude is not here. So, you know, I'm like, all right, I'm making some connections. But they wake up. Kodiak can't speak. I guess Rain, he can inadvertently read the mind of the girl. And she doesn't like it. It's like she's thinking to herself. She's freaking out. And she's like, and he's like, dude, calm down. And she's like, bitch, don't read my mind. Pisses me off. Don't read my mind. It's not okay. And they got generic, like, just human figure up in the trees watching them from a distance. And I guess his name, God damn it, it says it right here somewhere. I can't remember who the hell this is supposed to be. Why, this is just great YouTube channel. I just see her quietly looking at this because I'm sure I sat here and read it when I flipped through this, but now whoever the hell this guy is here, he got his form altered from whatever the hell they had just gone through. Their friend Exit has been replaced by a spawn of the Genesis pods. I don't know what all those words mean, but he's been changed in body and mind. And I also can see TODD NAUCK doing a thing where he's trying to do a thing, and I don't think it's working. But unless it's part of his costume design, but all these black splotchy shapes on the top of him, supposed to be, I believe, like the shadow of the leaves themselves being cast from like the sun casting down on top of the trees, and then the leaves are casting shadows on top of the figure to show that he's hiding in shadow and just part of his body is creeping out. It's ambitious, it's interesting, it's a good idea, and I don't think it works at all the way he did it. It's a hard thing to do. In fact, I was talking to a guy on a live stream last night. I was drawing, and they were hitting me up and just talking, and said that I'm trying to draw shadow or leave shadows on a figure. I'm like, oh, that's hard, because to make it look right, you know, he's kind of doing the same thing down through here. I get what he's trying to do, unless it's part of his costume design and I'm just misunderstanding, but I don't think it is. You guys will correct me in the comments, I know. But if it's supposed to be the shadow of the leaves cast on him, it's ambitious. He should just forget the leaves and just cast him in heavy shadow and just have only little bits of him visible, not this much. Anyway, he's watching, and then suddenly the team gets attacked by some kind of combination of Ed 209 and the Star Wars Chicken Walker, whatever the hell things. One thing that TODD NAUCK is really good at is the tech stuff. Like, we've seen a lot of it, the base, the place where all the characters are lined up and, you know, in the medical bed things. And then these machines, TODD NAUCK could do the tech stuff really good. That's pretty awesome stuff. Great designs. If he, you know, come up with them on his own, I don't know. But, you know, classic, you know, giant robotic soldier to attack the team. So now we have something to fight. And again, if it's in their mind, it's all kind of pointless, but they don't know that it's going on in their mind. So the team has to do awesome shit. I don't know who these characters are and what their abilities are. I don't know how she's bouncing around or jumping, you know, bounce, 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 whatever that's all about. Don't know. I didn't understand, Because at first I saw this, like, I'm going to bring this up here, this word balloon. I'm like, why is she saying Byro? B-Y-R-O. But then I'm like, oh, that's supposed to be a D. That's bird. So bird is the guy with the wings who's not here. Or he's got wings or something, right? Bird, the character bird is none of these characters, so I don't understand why she's saying it, but whatever. Kodiak's up there ripping guns off the machines. Good for him. And then this other girl, I guess she's super strong, so they both get on the legs of one of these machines and split it apart. Okay, that's awesome. And then Rain's using his little mental abilities to rip the machines apart. All right, yeah, they're a team. They got powers. They're awesome. Now they're all sitting around trying to just figure out what the hell is the next move. I can kind of see the cutesy pose of the girl. I mean, it works, but I can't help but wonder if there's some J. Scott Campbell Gen 13 influence going on here, because Campbell was blowing everybody away with like the young teen hero art. And that's kind of what these characters are, I think. A younger group. You know, they're not the old, wise, experienced soldiers. They're the younger group. And I just kind of feel like maybe TODD NAUCK might be taking some inspiration from Campbell, which, do it. Like, who the hell wouldn't want to do that? Unfortunately, at this point, he's not nearly as, you know, overflowing with the raw talent like Campbell was. But I'm not trying to take anything away from TODD NAUCK. I mean, Campbell's just on this whole other level. But TODD NAUCK was coming along very quickly. But yeah, all right, whatever. The reformed character exits, just watching the heroes smash the robots and bad guys watching this all go on in their minds. Sure. And then I guess super evil bad guy named Jedemiah Hagstrom wants to make sure that this process is working, because if he's going to invest in the long term of these new men, they have to make sure that it's worth it. In terms of a shot of a guy standing there trying to look imposing and scary, it's kind of generic, but it works. So good for them. You know, it's not bad. So then this guy, this is a guy named Pilot, I think. When I looked at this giant size, I almost said giant size X-Men, giant size Youngblood, whatever, where these Newman characters showed back up, and I was like, well, I know they're the Newman-ish characters. I don't know much about them. But towards the back of it, somewhere here, Shaft got his ass shot down, and then this dude showed up. And when I was reviewing it, I'm like, who's this? Mexican Cable? You know? Who is this guy? I'm guessing it's him. It's like he doesn't look the same in the slightest, except for the little stripe over his eye. Like, yeah, I guess, and the goatee. I guess if that's the one defining visual characteristics you could put on this character, is he's got a stripe on his eye and a goatee. Like, the guy's bald here, but you could grow, whatever. I mean, I guess that's supposed to be him, you know? Whatever. He's there. He's geared up. Again, TODD NAUCK doing good gear, you know, big guns and stuff like that. It's working really well. He's going to get together. I don't know, he's gearing up to go do some shit. They're heading out to leave, go somewhere, and then it ends by somebody getting shot in the back of the head. The end, I don't know, whatever. So, yeah, I don't care about the story, but TODD NAUCK, like, the guy's got legitimate talent, and it looks to me like he was rapidly getting better, like, really fast. And I know there was a comic series he did of his own that I think he was writing, penciling, inking, coloring, doing the entire thing. And there was a secondary Invincible title, and I can't remember what it was called, but I was collecting it for a long time that was focusing on like the secondary characters in the Invincible universe, which is a lot. And he was really, really good. Like, you could tell the guy had really found his voice, and he probably found his voice a long time ago, because I didn't collect anything he had done until that Invincible series. But he got really good, and it's just neat to see a guy start out and get to make comics, and seems like he's passionate about it, and he just wants to keep working at that because it means a lot to him. And he got really good, and you could see the skill, you know, burgeoning here really fast. So TODD NAUCK, you know, pretty badass. This ad surprised me because, correct me if I'm right, guys. Youngblood #9, Spotlight on Shaft. Wasn't Youngblood #9 the Image crossover title that Jim Valentino did? And then Youngblood 10 was the last issue. So clearly they had different plans going on in the moment. I remember seeing this and I'm like, Liefeld must have been looking at some anime something. I gotta admit, like these giant fucking stupid robo boots, I can't credit that to Liefeld. I just don't believe for a second that that's his creation. It's stupid and doesn't make any sense, but I kind of like it. It especially doesn't make sense for a character who's an archer, who likes to jump around and jump and flip and do the splits while shooting arrows, to have giant mega boots on. But I kind of like the visual design, the over-the-top silliness. It's just fucking ridiculous. But somehow it kind of works. And again, this has got to be some anime thing or some manga thing that he took and swiped. I don't believe for a second that's an original Liefeld creation. So I'm sure some of you know, and you'll let me know. But yeah, Youngblood #9, that whatever Youngblood #9 that was actually published was not that. I know that. Prophet Cable says Chuck Dixon and Rob Liefeld. Did this ever happen? I feel like it did, but I mean, I don't think Liefeld drew this. Again, somebody let me know and correct me. There's a Prophet Cable crossover, right? It does exist, but Liefeld didn't draw it, correct? You'd think he would, because I've already covered the X-Force Youngblood crossover, and that was handed off to other artists, and I'm like, this should have been Liefeld's greatest work at the time. His two biggest creations and two biggest teams crossing over, and he didn't draw it at all or write it or anything. What a missed opportunity. Kind of feel like the same thing here. Obviously, Cable loves him, and he thinks Prophet is the greatest creation he's ever done, ever. This should be a thing that Liefeld should draw, but I don't ever remember seeing it. So I'm really curious if you could tell me, does this exist? Is this out there? Kind of an interesting splash page. Cable just covered in all that insanity. Evangeline, I've got a bunch. I had a guy send me a pile of books that she guest stars in. I never read any of her stuff really, and I got to find all those books and we can kind of keep going through them. I just look at them, just kind of see what the artists do, and I don't know. It is interesting that, you know, it lists Evangeline #3, Liefeld and Napton, I'm guessing writers, and then Stinsman, that's penciler, and inker Alkiza, but this is, I think it's Andy Park is the artist name, because I'm like, that's not Stinsman. I know Stinsman's art in this era pretty well, and that's not him. No disrespect to Stinsman, but I never liked his work back in the 90s, like, at all. I just didn't like it. And this Andy Park, that looks pretty freaking good. And then here's a Lady Supreme, #1. Same artist, Andy Park. I'm pretty sure it's Andy Park. It's Park. I don't know if this guy stayed in comics for a while. I feel like he's maybe into animation or something like that. It's just interesting that he gets two pages side by side with his artwork. And the girls look good. I like the Evangeline better. But, you know, it's interesting. Ads for books coming up. Speaking of books I want to get my hands on, I'm fairly certain this one happened. Bad Rock Wolverine. I mean, written by Valentino with art by Chap. I mean, Chap was a guy when he started out, he wasn't any good, but he got pretty dang good, pretty dang fast, and he worked his ass off drawing all kinds of pages and books and everything. And this looks like, I mean, if the entirety of the inside of the Bad Rock Wolverine crossover looks like this, could this potentially be his best defining comics work? I would actually really love to see this. This is one that I want to find and get my hands on. It's unfortunate Chap has gotten out of the comics industry, and I know a guy who works with him. He's like, yeah, I work with them. We work in the same building doing, I think it's video game stuff. And he basically says that Chap is just out of he doesn't give a shit about comics. Like, he's just moved on. It's his past. He's doing other stuff. He's a family man. And he's just not interested in comics anymore. And it's kind of a bummer because if he had an interest, I feel like Chap would get a very warm welcome from a lot of the artists, the readers, the kids, you know, all of us who looked at his stuff back in the day. I kind of wish he would have a little bit more interest in coming back and doing stuff. But from what my buddy tells me, he just doesn't seem like he has any, like, no interest in the slightest, from what I understand. It's kind of a bummer. But yeah, that's pretty solid. I kind of want to see that ad for Extreme Prejudice, whatever, and then whatever and whatever. Anyway, so, you know, New Force, I don't really care about the book or the story, but TODD NAUCK, getting good, and it's pretty solid, so that's awesome. So yeah, I don't know. I'd love to hear any comments of what you all think about this, any opinions on it, or what you think about it. But that's all I got for this one. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.